Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and get started on our presentation on time management and goal setting. And today's question is, how can I reduce stress using time management strategies and setting goals? So the objectives of today are going to be that you all are able to define procrastination and learn strategies to manage procrastination. And then we want to have you reflect on how you manage your time and identify strategies that may work best for yourselves. So you may know, you may not know what time management is, but it's important that we all acknowledge it's an issue in certainly all of our lives. But we all have to deal with it. We all have to find ways to best live our lives and get our objectives done, all while managing our time. This is, again, an issue for everyone. And I want to go ahead and give you all some tips for ensuring that the time management doesn't become too stressful. And you actually are able to get a hold of the tasks you need to do and complete them. All right, so let's start with managing your time. Sounds simple, but I'm going to give you some tips. So time management, it's definitely using skills, tools, or techniques to accomplish tasks, projects, and goals in a timely fashion. So it's really all about understanding that time is limited. There's a certain amount of time in a day, and the idea is to really get yourself organized in a way that you're managing what you're doing throughout the day. So that's why it's called time management. And what are the benefits of time management? It helps reduce stress, certainly, because you have a better control of how you're using your time. It allows you to get more things done, and it creates more time for you to do things guilt-free. So maybe there's a TV show that you all want to watch, and you're putting off homework, but how much fun are you having watching that TV show if you know in the back of your mind you're supposed to be doing an assignment? And in the end, I love this one. It helps you to feel better. It just helps you to feel um, better about knowing you're really, truly trying your best to accomplish your tasks. And then, of course, there's going to be time for taking care of yourselves. But again, it's all about managing and organizing your time. One of the things that a lot of people like to do in order to improve their time management is to identify their time wasters, and we all have them. So I encourage you all to reflect on the things that are taking up a lot of your time. And a lot of these are going to be related to social media. Some students have, video games that they enjoy playing, and then TV, Netflix, Hulu, all of those services. Of course, they're a lot of fun, but at times they can get a little distracting, a lot distracting. And so the point of you identifying these time wasters is for you to understand that yes, these can still be part of your day, but let's go ahead and do these tasks guilt-free once you are done with your responsibilities. So it's extremely important to find a balance between responsibilities and doing the things that you enjoy. And the reason for that is as you become older and as you transition into adult lives, you're going to find that there's more responsibilities. Right now, you all have school. And I understand that there's a lot of stress that comes from school. There's a lot of assignments, and there is a lot of your time being asked. However, it's a great practice for when, again, you transition into your adult lives. There's going to be tasks. I mean, I certainly have tasks that sometimes I truly don't want to do, and I'm sure y'all can relate. There's things you don't want to do. However, they need to be done in order for you to be able to meet your long-term goals and your objectives. And sometimes these time wasters, they take up a lot of our time, and we got to think about how what role they're playing in our lives. And if we are finding that we're just spending a lot of time on these on social media, on games, on watching television, then we can better develop a plan for maybe minimizing that time and organizing it into our day in a different way. All right. And so once you identify those time wasters, which it'll help you a lot because believe me, you'll find that there's things that you really don't have to be spending your day doing. So once that happens, you can go ahead and move forward to creating a to-do list. And to-do lists they sound obvious, but in reality, a lot of people don't really use this tool. So I actually recently started making to-do lists, and I thought, I'd been organized before, but a to-do list really actually helps you to prioritize tasks and actually see them all in front of you so that you can check them off whenever you need to. So tips for creating a to-do list is definitely prioritize the things that are most important. Make sure that you all have your own ways of sort of highlighting the things that are important. It could be through highlighting, it could be through bolding, underlining, whatever it is, to help you keep those things in priority. And one of the things that I do also recommend is that you arrange your to-do list by level of importance. So if it's extremely important, then you want to make sure you put it on the top because it has to be one of the things you do first. And so organize things by due dates, by how much they're worth in the class, but how important it is in carrying out the tasks in your life. And then this way, you're able to complete the high priority tasks first, and then move on to the ones that maybe they're not so much priority. You can definitely use your phone, paper, computer, whatever works best for you. Again, everyone's going to work very differently. So don't feel like, it looks super organized on Google Calendar. Don't feel like you have to do that. You can, do paper, do whatever works best for you. And make sure that you review the list daily. I mean, it won't help you to just simply create it. I know a lot of us maybe create these lists on Sundays and then we never look back at it at the week. But it won't help you if you really don't look at it. So you have to make sure that as you're completing tasks, you take a look and see if there's anything else that needs to be taken care of before you gave yourself your mental deadline. Writing things down truly does help you accomplish your tasks. And that's because you're able to see everything in front of you and you're able to really visualize some of the things that you're checking off. I have some examples here. Some of you will want to use your phones or again, your computers. And so there's apps where you can actually, organize yourself. And I would say these are actually pretty neat because you can see it all electronically. You can delete things as they go. You can check them off, and they usually have a lot of functions that obviously you won't be able to do by paper and pencil or pen. And so on the right there, you see my checklist for some of my assignments that I was completing. And so as you can see, it doesn't have to be extremely neat. I prioritize things by things that I needed to prioritize first and that were worth the most points in my courses. And so that is just an example for you all to see. It doesn't have to be neat, and you can really list it on the ways that you want. All right. Creating a to-do list. Let's go a little bit more into it. All right. And in creating your to-do list, which we just reviewed, that'll help you to create your routines. And so that's a little bit different from creating the to-do list. We're moving a little bit forward from that. And creating the routine is sort of like your to-do list in action. And so the routine is for example really planning out your day, so not just a list of tasks that need to get done or assignments that need to be completed, but it's also organizing your day. So this goes back to the managing your time. When you take control of what it is that you complete by in certain times, then that really helps you feel like again you're in control of your own time and you're able and capable of accomplishing tasks as they come. So let's do an example of a routine. Let's say I'm going to wake up every morning at 7. For everyone, that's different. Some of us it's 4 a.m., some of us it's 3 a.m. I don't know what your time is that you wake up, but you want to make sure that it's a reasonable time. Are you going to get to school on time? Is that accounting for the walk to school, the bus drive to school? Is that accounting for that commute time? So, and if you want like a little break before you go to school, then you want to make sure you account for that as well. So some people like to wake up and then go to school right away. They're able to function that way. Others need to wake up a little bit earlier, maybe have a little breakfast, and then go off to school. And so another thing on this routine would be, for example, eating lunch. That might not be something that you can necessarily control. So that might be something that you automatically put on your routine, because lunchtime is a certain time for all of you at school. And then once, let's say we get home around 4:30. Let's say I'm going to start my homework right away, get it over with, get it done with. And that way, if I have any questions, I'm able to write them down and then bring them to class the next day. Um, you also want to be able to determine when the best time to complete your homework is. I keep saying that everyone's different, and it's super true. Some people like to complete their homework, like I said earlier, right away, and then just kind of get it over with, while others might want to stay up. And usually I would say, be careful with staying up because it might be that, the next day when you have to go to school, you might be tired. So, make sure you organize your day around some of the structures that are already in place. So for example, you can't change the bell schedule, right? So you sort of have to plan your days around that. Um, but again, everyone has different types to do homework. Maybe you want to eat first. Maybe you want to do your homework before you eat, or dedicate that time, but make sure that it's a time that works best for you and you're going to be best focused. And the another one of your goals is to create habits that are going to help you reach your long-term goals. And so it's not just about, okay, I have to do this and I need to include it in my day, but it's also thinking about those long-term goals. So when you really think about it, everything you do sort of contributes into either something that's going to facilitate a task for future you, or something that really is going to your future you is going to thank you for. So let's say, for example, now you have extracurricular activities after school. It might feel exhausting on some days, but adding this to your routine is going to help you in, maybe being more social, connecting to networks, connecting to opportunities, connecting to more activities to put on your college applications, more things to talk about in a job interview. And that really adds up, and it helps you for getting these again, these long-term goals met. Um, and then finally, I know it's the last thing, but it's super important to set aside some time for the things that you love. So sometimes people like to do little, these are little treats. So you have a long week, and then maybe on Sunday night or Sunday morning, whenever works best for you, you treat yourself to like a movie or watching some television or playing video games, whatever that is for you. So you can put that on your to-do list, and you can include that in your routine, but you need to make sure you designate also your priorities. And this goes into the scheduling time for yourself. The scheduling breaks is extremely important. Nobody can work nonstop without a break. It's definitely not, it's not reasonable. You can't expect yourself to run the entire day without feeling tired at some point, right? That's what we have to sleep for. But not just sleep, it's also taking them very wisely. So um, whether your goal is to get a job, whether it's to go to college, complete an assignment by the due date, whatever your goal is at the moment, um, you want to also make sure that you are realistic in how much energy that's going to take. And so If you, for example, are scheduling really long breaks, then again, that all of these habits add up, and ultimately it'll delay you from really taking action on your future goals. And so if you might not know your goals specifically, but when you take long breaks, they again it sort of delays you from moving forward. So instead, what you want to do is maybe set a certain time, or only give yourself breaks on certain times, and then make sure that they don't run too long. And this is hard because, of course, if you're choosing between a break or doing homework, you might choose to just take that break, right? um, but maybe get creative with your breaks. So like if you do take a break, maybe you can do a little workout, or you can listen to some music very briefly, maybe like a couple of songs. Even stretching is a break. Sometimes you'll have like in between your class times, or you walk in between your classes. That's also considered a break, because you're taking your mind off of school for a bit, and focusing on just getting to your next class. There's a list here of other ideas for break times. And this is mostly for when you're completing assignments at home. So for example, you can drink some water, you can eat a healthy snack that'll help make you feel better and energize you. You can take deep breaths, you can decide to do absolutely nothing and just sit still for 2 minutes. And then maybe you can take some time to text or connect with a friend from a class, so that these breaks they can also be a little bit fun, but these are all things that take a short amount of time, so you don't feel so guilty about taking these long breaks. All right. And procrastination is a common issue, right? And a lot of us might feel compelled to procrastinate, especially when there's tasks that we, in particular, probably don't want to get done. Again, it happens to everybody, but think back at when you feel, how you feel when you're procrastinating. Doesn't feel fun at all. And so procrastination, that's just to give you a definition, is when you delay or postpone starting something or continuing something, right? And so, for example, people will delay chores. So it's very important to keep your space clean, but sometimes that doesn't sound so fun. So we might delay that. We may delay completing homework assignments and then miss deadlines. Class projects, which usually are worth a lot of our grade, but not good to procrastinate on. Very common is the parent consent forms, right? How many times have you received a paper from a counselor and they say, "Hey, bring it back the next day signed," and you just forget, right? Again, it happens, but we can actually do something so that we don't have these things kind of slip our minds. And then very, very common is to procrastinate studying for an exam. And I get this because exams, and in some cases assignments, they're stressful. And when you build up anxiety, then of course you don't want to think about studying or preparing for something. You're thinking, I'm just going to avoid this task altogether until I absolutely have to study. But when you think about it, if you procrastinate studying on an exam, then you give yourself less time to study, less time to figure out where you have questions in the material. And so it's a better idea to really develop a schedule where you're going to meet these tasks in a timely manner. So that goes into managing your procrastination. Rather than delaying tasks, which again are going to lead to more stress, you want to create shorter deadlines for tasks or assignments. So, for example, if you know that you have an application for a scholarship that's due July 31st, in your head, make that deadline July 15th. Then you have some time I mean, my suggestion would be submit it early. So that way you don't even have to think about it, right? You just get it done and then submit it early. And so when you create these mental deadlines, which are closer to the actual deadlines to you than the actual deadlines, um, it develops a sense of urgency within you, and it helps you to keep you motivated to complete that task. And so you can write these deadlines on your to-do lists, and then um, make sure you keep track of the actual deadlines, of course, but keep track of those mental deadlines that you give yourself, because these are the ones that you want to follow. Getting things done early, I promise you, will save you so much stress long term. All right. And another thing lots of us struggle with is managing your workload. So, not just keeping track of deadlines, but also taking a look at how much work we got to do and what's the plan to go ahead and get this work done. So, I talked a little bit about anxiety already, but this also creates some anxiety, right? And I think this is important for you to acknowledge that managing your time is, we're doing a workshop on it because it's not a thing that just comes naturally to everybody. It is definitely something you practice. And the more you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. And I talked about this earlier. It'll help you in your transition to adulthood. Because as an adult, you'll have even more deadlines that maybe have a little bit more severe consequences, like paying bills, doing your taxes if you don't already. So these things also have deadlines. And so practicing now only makes it so that later on you develop of this skill and strengthen this skill. Um, so just want to talk about acknowledging that anxiety. But as far as managing the workload, um, it sometimes it feels like a lot. So some assignments will require you to do, a multiple page paper. Maybe you have assignments that come up and are due on the same day. They're maybe for different classes, but they are due in the same day, and that's also stressful. And on top of that, you're studying for a test. So there's several things, right? Um, and certainly you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to do this all in one day, because it's not going to work. And understand that about yourself, that won't work. So something that I want to advise you all is break up the large assignments, or all of the assignments you have to do, into smaller tasks. So for example, it depends on how you work. The example here says, for a paper, start with your introduction or your thesis statement. Um, but for me, I personally like to actually start with the body paragraphs, because the introduction sort of comes at the end for me. I like to do the body paragraphs, because then that tells me what I want my introduction and conclusion to be about. So it's okay if you don't do it, the way that you think you have to start at beginning to top. Just kind of get to know how your work comes out best, and do the task in a manner that just makes sense to you, but break it up. Not all at once, break it up. Another thing that might work really well for some of you is just completing the easy assignments and getting them over with, and then worrying or focusing on the bigger assignments. Because let's say you start with the big assignment and you're just stuck on it for days, and you still have all these other little assignments you have to complete, right? Whereas you can do the little assignments and get them over with, then start on the big task. And when you have a test, you want to make sure that you review things day by day. If you try to squeeze in all the studying in one day, it's very likely to not be an effective way to do well on your exam. Some students feel like they're terrible test takers, and when I asked, well, did you try studying? And it's not everyone thinks, oh, I should study, right? So when you kind of reflect, are you really dedicating the time and energy that you can to studying? Because if you do apply yourself and really think of a study plan, then you're more likely to do well on the exam. Sometimes it's not even about really your understanding of the material. It's about how hard you try to understand that material, and your plan to really um, take all of that information and apply it to once you take that exam. All right. So we talked about time, managing our time. We talked about creating a list, managing the workload, and all of that are, again, skills that you can learn, strengthen, and then apply into your daily tasks and routines. So another very important part of successfully managing your time is your outlook on how these things are going to help you in your daily lives. And so instead of thinking about an assignment as, this is so boring, I don't want to do this, that's just going to set you up to delay the assignment, or decide not to complete it. And also, if you focus on how tough something's going to be, for example, you don't want to study for an English exam because it's going to be really hard anyway, then again, that's going to just delay you from beginning the studying. Instead, you can think of it as, if I start to study for the exam today, then I'll actually be a bit more prepared. So you can't control how difficult the exam is going to be, right? There's no controlling that. You don't see the exam until you take it. So the only thing you can control is how much you prepare for it. And guess what? If you do really well, then you prepared, right? And if you don't do really well, then that just shows you, okay, maybe next time I'll go ahead and edit some of the things that I wrote. I'll go ahead and ask more questions in this area. It's really an opportunity for you to understand where you still need to strengthen certain skills. And so you want to make sure that you think about your tasks, and in a bit of a more, and um, I'm struggling to say the word, but possibly in a bit more of a positive, with a bit more of a positive mindset, because it really matters. How you see something is really going to matter if the outcome for it. All right. And another thing you can do, and this sort of relates back to what we just talked about, but it's, making sure that you have a skill of self-regulation. Um, it's a little bit hard right now to think about how some of your tasks that maybe are taking, like we talked about in the beginning, time wasters. It's hard to think about how they adhere to these tasks that end up taking a lot of your time, right? So you want to make sure that you develop self-regulation. And in some cases, you might have to put an alarm on your phone that says, I've promised myself that I was only going to watch one episode, so let me put an alarm to remind me, this is what I said I was going to do. You can also, something I love to do is put your phone on airplane mode when you are, like when I'm home. I can just put it on airplane mode because I know that I don't need to be taking calls, text, for, let's say, about an hour while I'm doing a homework assignment or something like that. Um, that that totally works. And you put your phone away. Sometimes I put it in a different room so that I'm not tempted to, just look on the side and start looking into my phone. So that really helps. The phone, yeah, I know it has a lot of information on there, but a lot of times it can prevent us from starting a task. And then a bit more on self-care. So, even putting your phone away can be considered self-care. Sometimes you might, like, if you really reflect, sometimes you might even think, I'm using my phone all the time. Like, I'm using it before I sleep. And, if let's, really reflect on, if you were to take away some of the time wasters and some of the things where, it's not really adding much to your quality of life, then you get a little bit more time, right? So it's not always that there's not enough time to do things. It's sometimes it's about how we manage our time. And if you practice the skill, and you're going to see a change in how much you're able to accomplish. And I promise you, it's going to feel very good, because all of a sudden you have all of these tasks that you're completing guilt free, right? You're prioritizing the things that you have to be doing, and then you're also getting this time for self care. So self care, I'm going to talk just about the basic things, because these are the foundation of doing things in a healthy manner, right? You want to make sure that you're drinking water, eating good meals, trying to get your 8 hours of sleep. I know that sounds unrealistic to some of us, but trying your best to get those 8 hours. That's one of my goals, like almost every day, is that I try to make it so that when I set my alarm, it says at least 8 hours. So that's an accomplishment, right? You want to try and sleep at least 8 hours. Um, and then, just a little bit of tips is, um, doing simple stretches. Once when you get your body moving, it definitely helps. Like, even there's been studies done where, while you study, while you are completing assignments, if you get up and stretch, it actually even helps you, with retaining information, rather than just sitting down the entire time and trying to, get that information. And maybe take a shower break, maybe have a meal break. These are things that are essential, in our daily lives, and we can't just put these things off. They have to be part of our routine as well. Setting goals for yourself, um, creating a goal. Um, and this is for students and maybe all of us who have challenges staying motivated, or they have a goal of wanting to improve academically. So you want to set a SMART goal for yourself. Creating goals can help you stay focused during a time of change. So right now, I know we're all going through this transition of going back to campus. It's been a couple of months, but we're still feeling that transition. So SMART goals, which are, they stand for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So if you sort of follow these guidelines to setting goals, they help you accomplish what you're working towards, and they also help you track your progress. All right. So for example, if you set a SMART goal of, getting good grades, that's a little general, right? Everybody wants to get good grades. But if you set a specific example, like I want to get at least a B in all of my A through G courses, then this is it's again, it's specific because you're saying what grade, and then it's in all of your A through G courses. Is it measurable? And yes, in this case, this goal is measurable because you can actually track your progress and keep checking on your own grades, monitoring your own grades. Is it attainable? And yes, it's attainable. If you're a student who typically gets C's, B's, A's, and getting B's is very likely to happen for you. And of course, it's going to be some work, but you can do it. It's attainable. Is it relevant to your long-term goals? And in this case, yes, because the student wants to go to UC Irvine, they want to go to college. It's essential that they get good grades in their A through G courses. And then time bound. How long is it going to take you? So you'll get to know if you achieve this goal by the end of the semester. So your time bound is a semester, seeing if you track it. So this is the idea behind the SMART goal. It's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. All right. And then finally, for some inspiration, um, the UCs and Cal States, they look at your GPA from 10th and 11th grade. And so and it's in the A through G courses. So your grades really matter for 10th and 11th grade, because that's what the UCs and Cal States are going to take a look at. So they are going to base your admissions off of the grades you received in these grades. And most public and private universities, they prefer students who have at least a 3.0 GPA minimum. So hopefully that pushes you. That's about a B average. So hopefully that pushes you to try to get those B's and A's. And then earning a 3.0 not only gives you more likeliness of getting into a four-year college, but it also it definitely helps you be eligible for more financial aid, which is money for college that you don't have to pay back, and also for scholarships. So that's one of the things that a lot of scholarships, which are they're applications for free money for college, that you can apply to at any point in high school. Um, but they're based sometimes on your grades. So GPAs are not only good for admissions, but they're also good for paying for college. All right, so we ended with some motivation. I want to thank you so much for your time. So thank you for being here. I'll stick around if there are any questions. And again, thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to say for questions and see your fulfillment fund counselor at your school if you have any additional questions you may not have thought of today. Thank you again. Bye-bye.